Okay, let's start from here. We almost finished this sugya about the chaya. So let's go over this last part, Meimatai P'tichat HaKever. So if you remember, right, the Mishnah here is talking about that we help a woman to give birth even on Shabbos, and subsequent to that, the Gemara had discussion about what that means, and we learned already some pertinent things. One of them was that we were mechal Shabbos for her to the extent that we can call for the yoledet, the miyaledet, can't remember what it's called.
No, I can't remember. The midwife.
Thank you. This is what happens. We can call for the midwife, the midwife from place to place, meaning that she can even come from outside of the tchum. We also learned that if the yoledet, if the woman who gave birth says she needs a light, that we can light a light for her, but not only that, we can light it for if she wants, even if she's blind, so that she is comforted in the knowledge that anyone who's taking care of her has sufficient light. And then we have this statement, Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel Chaya kol zman shekever patuach bein amrat tzrichani bein lo amrat tzrichani mechalina le'at Shabbat. So Rav Yehuda says in the name of Shmuel that as long as the womb is open, whether she says I need or I don't need, what does it mean? If she says I need, what does that mean in this context?
If she needs something, for example, a light, we talked about.
Right. So in other words, whether she says I need you to do something that's a chilul Shabbat, or whether she doesn't say Mechalina le'at Shabbat, we're still mechal Shabbos for her. Meaning what? If we think she needs. If we think she needs it, then we're mechal Shabbos for her. Nistam hakever, but if the womb is closed, bein amrat tzrichani, bein lo amrat tzrichani, ein mechal lina le'at Shabbat. Once the womb is closed, whether or not she says she needs something, that might be a chilul Shabbat. We're no longer mechal Shabbat for her. That's how Rav Ashi learned. And Mar Zutra learned differently. He said that Rav Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel that the first part is the same. Chaya kol zman shekever patuach bein amrat tzrichani bein amra ein tzrichani, whether as long as the womb is open, whether she said I need or whether she said I don't need, we're mechal Shabbos for her. Nistam hakever. Once the womb is closed, amrat tzrichani mechalina le'at Shabbat. Lo amrat tzrichani ein mechalina Shabbat. Once the kever is closed, we will still be mechal Shabbos for her if she says that she needs. But once the womb is closed, but if she says I don't need, then we're not mechal Shabbos for her. And then the Gemara concludes that we hold like this version that Mar Zutra just brought, because safek nefashot lahakel. So here we're mekil for her, and this is safek nefashot, so we're mekil. So then we asked, so then we had to define this. At what point is it considered that the womb is open? From the time that she sits on the mashber. And the word I was looking for last week was the travailing stool, which is a sort of an archaic term. That's what Jastrow says, right? We don't use this word travail so much. It's very literary. But what Michael said was birthing stool, which is correct, but I was looking for that travailing stool. In any event, that would be considered the opening of the womb, which presumably is going to be right before the baby would be birthed. Rav Huna Bereder of Yoshua Mar Mishasha Dam Shotet V'Yored, from the time that blood is trickling out and going down. So that would be earlier, even before she sits on the birthing stool. But Amrila, and some people say it, Mishasha Chavrota Nosotota Bagapah. Some people say it's from the time that her friends are carrying her by her arms. Ad matai ptichat hakever. Okay, so it's one of those times that we say. Ad matai ptichat hakever. So until when do we say that the womb is open? Because we need to know that because of this distinction. Once we consider the womb to be closed, then even according to our prior conclusion, we're only going to be Mechal Shabbat for her if she says Tzrichani, right? If she says that I need you to be Mechal Shabbat. So we need to know what that time is. Amar Abaye Shlosha Yamim. Abaye says it's 3 days. Right, until when is it open? It's open for 3 days. So from the time, however you count, right? So and this gets a little technical in the sense that, okay, let's say we have to choose one of the 3 times. We have to count from there. And when we say 3 days, do we mean 3 24-hour days? In other words, do we say 72 hours? Or are we saying days like calendar days? So if there was Ptichat HaKever on Friday, so then we would count Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then when Sunday is over, then that would be the end of 3 days. That we have to look into other poskim for. But nonetheless, Abai says for 3 days, Rava says in the name of Rav Yehuda is 7 days, and some people say that it's 30 days. And Amri Nardai, the people in Nardea said, Chaya Shosha Shiva Ushoshim. They put it this way. There wasn't really a machloket according to the Nardai, but there were 3 specific lengths of time. There were 3 periods. So a chaya is a chaya for the purpose of Chilul Shabbat for 3 days, for 7 days, and for 30 days. Shosha ben amra tzrichani, ben amra lo tzrichani, v'chalina le'ata Shabbat. So everybody agrees. The first 3 days, whether or not she says I need or I don't need, we're Mechal Shabbos for her. So 3 days from the time she gives birth, or 3 days from Ptichat HaKever, right? Which, that can be another whole day before, even according to the most machmir, the most machmir time that we just gave is when she's on the birthing stool. Which seems like it's imminent, but having, witnesses, and I know many times that labor can go for more than a day. So in any event, Shiva, Amra Tzrichani, Mechalina Le'ata Shabbat, Amra Lo Tzrichani, Ein Mechalina Shabbat. So for 7 days, this is like the second part of the Ma'amar we saw before, the version of Mar Zutra of Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. If she says she needs, then we're Mechal Shabbos for her. If she says I don't need, we're not Mechal Shabbos for her. So that's for 7 days from the time of Ptichat HaKever. meaning the last 4 days of the first week. Shoshim, Afil Amrat Tzvichani, for the 30 days, in other words, for the remainder of 30 days. So for another 23 days, even if she says, I need you to be Mechal Shabbos, Ein Mechal Lina to Shabbat, Avosina Yedei Armai. So we're not Mechal Shabbos for her, but we can have a non-Jew be Mechal Shabbos for her. And as we said last time, the chidush there is that normally we're not allowed to tell a non-Jew outright to do something for us, to be Mechal Shabbos for us on Shabbos. But here, in the case of a Chaya and Shloshim, then we can say explicitly to the non-Jew to be Mechal Shabbos for her. That's what makes it different. K'deravula b'rei Rav Ilai, d'amar kol tzorchei choleh, nasin al yedei armai b'Shabbat. This goes like Ravula, the son of Rav Ilai, who said, all the needs for a sick person are done by way of a non-Jew on Shabbos. Rav Hamnuna, d'amar Rav Hamnuna, דבר שאין בו סכנה, אומר לנוכרי ועושה. Something which, does not have danger, we say to the non-Jew, and he does. In other words, דבר שאין בו סכנה, meaning in this context. So in other words, we combine these last two statements. We have Rav Ula Bereda Rav Ilai, who says generally anything that's necessary for the sick person is done by a non-Jew on Shabbos. And then we have this second statement of Rav Hamnuna, which we add to it, Davar she'ein bo sakana, omer l'nachrid yoseh. That when do we say that it's done by a non-Jew is when it's ein bo sakana. Just a second. Let's see how the Rambam says that. So the Rambam here says, Choleh she'ein bo sakana, osin lo kol tzrachav al yedei goy. So a choleh that is not in danger, we do all of their needs by way of a goy. So we understand this is one, as I said when we started this part of the sugya, we're looking at this because chaya, it turns out, is sort of a paradigm for how we understand the laws of a choleh on Shabbat. So even though technically a woman giving birth is not sick, but she has the status of somebody who's sick, right? And so now we see from the chaya that there are these three categories. Actually, I think it behooves us. Let's look at the Rambam here a little bit. So this is the Rambam in the second parak of Hilchot Shabbat, and he says, "D'chuya hi Shabbat etzel sakanat nefashot kishar kol hamitzvot. Lefikach choleh sheyesh bo sakana osin lo kol tzrachav b'Shabbat al pi rofeh uman sheloto makom." Right, so Shabbos is pushed away when it comes to somebody's life being in danger. Like any other mitzvah. In other words, that we're doche other mitzvot when somebody's life is in danger. So this is true also for Shabbos. So if you have somebody whose life is in danger, then we do everything that's necessary for them on Shabbos, according to an expert doctor of that place. Now, this issue of the doctor, we're going to get into this. This is based on a sugya later on in Yoma, and it gets into a very interesting machloket rishonim about how all that works. And bear in mind, of course, that the Rambam himself was an expert doctor. The Ramban was also an expert doctor. A number of other rishonim were also doctors. But there's a discussion in the Gemara about this, which we'll get into. So if there's a doubt about whether or not you have to be Mechal Shabbos for them, if one doctor says you do have to be Mechal Shabbos, and one says you don't need to be Mechal Shabbos, Mechalmin alav et Shabbat. Shesafek nefashot doche et Shabbat. So if it's a machloket between two doctors, then the safek nefashot should be in the direction to be doche Shabbat. Amduhu biyom haShabbat shetzarich lekach vekach. So if he was evaluated on Shabbos that he needs a certain treatment for 8 days, so we don't say let's wait till Motzei Shabbat so that we don't have to be machal 2 Shabboses, right? So today is Shabbos. He has to do some kind of a treatment that's Chilul Shabbat over a period of 8 days. So we don't say, and maybe it's just another couple of hours until the end of Shabbos. We don't say wait till the end of Shabbos to start the treatment. Rather, we start it right away. We begin from today, which is Shabbat. So, ad kedei kach Shabbos is tchuya, that even if you might think that it wouldn't make much of a difference, we don't take chances. So we give them the treatment immediately. And we're mechal even 100 Shabbos for them if it's something that they need, and yesh bo sakana, o safek sakana. In other words, if they're clearly in danger, or if we're not sure they're in danger. Madlikin lo etaner. We light a lamp for them, and we also put out the lamp for them. Let's say they don't want the lamp. And we shecht for them, we'll shecht an animal for them on Shabbos, we'll bake for them on Shabbos, we'll cook for them on Shabbos. We warm up hot water for them on Shabbos. Bein lahashkoto, bein l'chlitzat kufo. Rather, he needs them for drinking or to wash his body. Kalosh davar Shabbat legabe chole sheyesh bo sakana. Harehu kechol lechol hadvarim shehu tzarich lahem. So, right, Shabbos is like chol for anything that a cholesh yesh bo sakana needs, right? So it's not for anything, but it's for anything they need. Okay. Amduhu biyamish. Wait, we did that one. Wait a second. That's kishosim dvarim ha'elu eno sinotam lo al yedei goyim, v'lo al yedei ktanim, v'lo al yedei avadim, v'lo al yedei nashim. Kedei shelo tehei Shabbat kala be'eineihem, ela al yedei gedolei Yisrael v'chachmeihem. So when we do these things, we don't do them by way of non-Jews or minors or slaves or women, in order that Shabbos should not be light in their eyes, right? That they shouldn't think it's something that you can easily be mechalel. It's a bit degrading to women, but that was, I think, a common understanding at the time. But rather, you do them al yedei gedolei Yisrael v'chachmeihem. You do them dafka by way of the great ones in Israel and their wise men. You're not allowed to hold off, to hesitate, or to right to wait to do Chilul Shabbat for a cholah sheyesh bo sakana. Shenema asher yaseh otam ha'adam v'chai b'hem v'lo sheyamut b'hem. Halamadta she'en mishpatei haTorah nekama ba'olam. So this teaches you that the laws of the Torah are not a revenge. They're not some kind of an nekama in this world by the Kadosh Baruch Hu, ela rachamim v'chesed v'shalom ba'olam. Right? This is the nature of Torah. It's not there for God to get you and certainly not to endanger your life, but rather the opposite. ואלו המינים שאומרים שזה חילול שבת ואסור עליהן הכתוב אומר, וגם אני נתתי להם חוקים לא טובים, משפטים לא יחיו בהם. So people who say these minim, right? So these like apikursim type people that say, and I don't know this for sure, but it could be he's referring here to Karaites. That take the Torah more literally, but right, because one of the Torah doesn't list the 39 malachot in a direct way, but one of the things it says is lo tavaru esh b'chol moshoteichem b'yom Shabbat. So Karaites were very makpid about that. As you might know, before them, the Tzadukim and the Baitusim, and they would put their fires out before Shabbat, right? So they understood the pasuk to mean that you can't have any fires burning. The Torah says you can't burn a fire, lo tiva'aru, but they understood it to mean that even if you lit the fire before Shabbat, it can't burn on Shabbat. So they have to put out their fires before Shabbat. And they would have been possibly so strict as to say that even if somebody is in the cholah sheyesh bo sakana, somebody is really in danger of dying, we wouldn't be able to light a fire for them, even if it would mean to save their life. Like, for example, if you needed to, maybe a doctor says, I need hot water to treat them, or whatever it would be. So the Rambam says there's this sort of contrasting pasuk in Yechezkel to the pasuk in Vayikra. So this one, the pasuk in Vayikra is Asher Yoseh Otam Adam B'chai B'hem, and the drasha is V'lo She'amut B'hem. But he says, Yechezkel says, in the name of Hashem, Gam ani natati lahem chukim lo tovim. I also gave them bad laws and mishpatim lo yichyu b'hem, that they will not live by. In other words, to those people who aren't really the idea is where those people who are not really following my Torah, they'll take the Torah and make them into bad laws, and they will not live by them. But there was something else I wanted to point out here. Oh, this is a little anecdote, which I asked Rav Savitsky. I may have mentioned this at some point, but this bothered me after I made Aliyah. So it took a few years because of my status as a Toshav Ari and all that before I was a full citizen. But of course, the day I got my citizenship, literally, I was I got citizenship at Misrad Apnim, and they handed me my draft paper along with it. So, and actually, I had to go to Chutzlar. It's like I ran over and I made an arrangement with them, and it was okay. But when I was this is something that really had bothered me about how, as you know, many Charedim, as a matter of shita, right? Like that's the way they roll, that they will not join the army.
Yeah.
And Rav Savitsky, who's firmly in the Haredi world, I put this question to him, and I think I started off by asking him. I asked him point blank. I said, "Do I have a chiyuv to go into the army?" So his first response to me was along the lines that he had connections and he would be able to get me an exemption. And I said, Kvod Harav, right, that wasn't my question. And then I put it to him based on the Gemara that this is, right, the Rambam here is basing himself on the Gemara and Shabbat. And this is in the Rambam, it's in the Shulchan Aruch, that I said, I'll put it this way: if tomorrow there was no army in Israel, the army disbanded, that would put all the Jews in Eretz Yisrael in the sakanat nefashot. They would all be in danger, right, of their lives. So there's a constant status of pikuach nefesh in Israel. So I said, given that, and given that the Gemara says that the Gdolim and Chachamim are the ones who should be Mechalel Shabbat, right? So shouldn't they be the first ones to volunteer for the army? So he smiled and he said, yeah, you're right. I don't think he ever made a public statement about that, but he did agree with my reasoning. To me, it seems obvious, and I won't get into it. It's too broad an issue, but I do find it shocking, actually, and I think that those Haredim who choose to go into the army, I don't know. I've never spoken to any of them, but it very well could be that this is why they feel they need to go. Like as a halachic Jew, this should be something that you have to do. Let's skip that one. Maybe I should do it. החושש בעיניו והוא שיהיה בשתיהם או באחת מהם ציר או שהיו דמעות שוטטות מהן מרוב הכאב או שהידם שוטט מהן או שהיה בהן קדחת וכי יוצא בחלאים אלו הרי זה בכלל חולים שיש בהן סכנה מפעילים עליו את השבת ועושים לו כל צורכי רפואה. Right, so somebody who has a pain in their eye, whether it's in both of them or one of them, that he has a tzir. A tzir is one of the mumim that is posel kohen. It's referring to different kinds of issues that can come up with your eye. And one of the symptoms would be that it's constantly tearing from the pain, or if there's blood coming out, or if there's some kind of like a fever that's associated with a kadachat, or some malady like any one of these are considered to be cholim sheyesh behen sakana. So we won't get into the technicalities of that. Let's go. V'chein yesh makah b'chalal gufo min hasafa v'lifnim. בין בפיו, בין באיו, בין בכבדו, בתחולו, או בשאר המקומות, כל שיש בחללו, הרי זה חולה שיש בו סכנה. So if you have, in other words, if there's something wrong with one of your internal organs, essentially, right, in the halal guf, so for that, ein sarich omed, you don't need to be evaluated by an expert. Choyel kavedu, any kind of internal injury or malady is going to be considered sakanat nefashot. So for this person, we're Mechal Shabbos immediately without evaluation. V'gav hayad, v'gav haregel, harehi k'makash shel halal. If you have a wound on the back of your hand or on the back of your leg, that's considered to be like a makah, like a wound that's inside of your body. Also, that doesn't need to be evaluated, and we're Mechal Shabbos for it. V'achom שמסמר את הבשר כמכה של חלל של חלל דם, מחללים עליו את השבת. וכן כל חולי שהרופאים אומרים שזה יש בו סכנה, אף על פי שבאור הבשר מבחוץ מחללים עליו את השבת על פיהם. So again, these go into some more technical details, but it's interesting, right? Because he finishes off by saying, he starts off by listing things which you don't need to consult a doctor for. But he ends off by saying anything that doctors say that this is a sakana, even if it's only on your skin, right? Because he started off by talking about things that happen internally, but then we see that certain things on the outer part of the body can be considered like internal. If a doctor says, okay, oh, yeah, this is an important halakha. Cholesh amduhu rofim lavilo grogeret achat. Right, so the prescription for this particular choleh was to bring a single grogeret, right, a date. Ratzu asara b'nei adam. So 10 people ran off to get the grogeret. Ve'viu lo eser grogerot b'vat achat kulan pturin miklum. Right, all of them are patur from anything. Even if they brought one after the other, even if he already recovered after eating the first grogeret, they all brought it with permission. So what did we learn about that's similar to this? Not here, but back in Rosh Hashanah.
Oh, if more than one zug or person aid comes for the new moon to testify seeing the new moon.
Right, exactly. It was by a takana, Rabban Gamliel, that they accept everybody, and they would even examine all of the witnesses so that none of them would feel that they came for nothing. So it's an important principle. It's one of these principles of Chazal that we want to make sure that people will not hesitate to be Mechalel Shabbat when you should be Mechalel Shabbat. So let's say you cook something for a choleh on Shabbat. In other words, you cooked it b'rshut, right? You're allowed to do it because it's something that the choleh needed on Shabbat. So what's the status of not food for anybody else? And so he ate whatever it is you made for him, the hotir, and he had leftovers. So we don't let a healthy person eat the rest as a gzeirah, that we're afraid that otherwise that when you cook for him, you'll add extra so that that you or somebody else can eat it. V'chein kol ki yotzei bazeh. Right, but if you had to shecht an animal for him, so what's the difference, right? With when you shecht the animal, anybody can eat of that meat while it's raw, right? You'd have to salt it or whatever, but you could eat the raw meats, even though it's also extra. It's more than what the choleh needed. But what's the difference between this and cooking for the choleh?
You can't like shecht heft an animal. You have to do like the whole thing. You can't just do that portion.
Right, so we're going to shech the animal in any event, right? So we're going to end up with a whole animal, and maybe he only needs a kazayit of this animal. So anybody else who wants to could eat of that animal because it was shechted beheter for the choleh, and now the rest of and right, the reasoning for the tafshil for the something that was cooked is that shema yarbeh bishvilo. And here you can't be marbeh, right? You can't shecht more of an animal to get more of what you want. So even like, because even a small animal is still going to be big. The Ravid says, "Aval shochet lecholem shebam mutar bari amar Avraham v'hu shiyeh lo cholem yibod yom." So he says this is only if he was already sick from the day before. We'll leave that for either later or when we learn the Masechet Shabbat. And also we'll come back though to this basic din. I think we'll still talk about that today. Okay, so cholesh ein bo sakana. So this is where we're up to in the Gemara, right? The cholesh ein bo sakana osin lo kol tzrachav al yedei goy. So until now, the Rambam has only been talking about a cholesh sheyesh bo sakana. But what about a cholesh she'ein bo sakana? So we can do all of the needs for cholesh she'ein bo sakana by way of a non-Jew. Ketzad. How does that work? Omrin legoy lasot lo v'hu oseh v'shel lo v'lafot l'abir refuah mireshut v'shut k'yotzei beit. He can cook, he can bake for him, he can carry things for him from one place to another. Became kochal einav. He can treat his eyes with kochal, which was a big deal back then. Even though there's no danger to the person's life. If they needed things that don't involve an actual malacha, osinotan afilu Yisrael, then a Jew can also do them. Lefikach malin iznayin b'Shabbat malin ankali u'machzirina teshaber v'chol kiyotzei b'zeh mutar. I'll be honest, I didn't prepare this, and I'm not sure if I explained all of the last part, but except for machzirina teshaber, right? So if they have a broken limb, then you're allowed to push it back into place.
Oh,
I'm not sure. I'll be honest. I'm not sure right now what these are. I think right. I think it's based on the Gemara a little bit past this. So I forgot what that means. I apologize. Hayoledet. So a woman who's giving birth, kishikoraat leiled, when she's bending over to give birth, arehi b'sakanat nefashot, m'chalina le'at Shabbat. So the Rambam seems to hold by the first day that when she's on the birthing stool, when she's on b'mashber, that's when we consider her to be a chaya. That's when we consider her womb to open. She's about to give birth. When Machal Shabbos for Korin la Chachama mimakom limakom, we call a midwife for her from one place to another, and it's even outside of the tchum. We cut the umbilical cord and we tie it. That's a little later on in the Gemara. If she needed a lamp at the time that she is crying in her travail, right? When she's in the throes of childbirth, we light a lamp for her. So the Rambam seems to limit that idea of lighting the lamp that to this time when she's actually the sakanat nefashot. It's the time when she's actually giving birth. So like the Gemara says, even if she's blind, because she'll be reassured knowing that the person who's taking care of her has a light. If she needed oil or something like that, then we bring it for her, meaning we carry it on Shabbat, even Mereshut to Reshut. As much as we can bring it with a difference, so if we can change the way we normally carry it, we do that. For example, her friend can bring what she needs by tying a cleat to her hair. If it's not possible to do that, then she can bring it. Right, so we saw that in the Gemara. Okay, that's something else. Let's go back to where we were in the Gemara. Just a second. Okay, I think we read this last time, but let's just go through it a little bit again. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, v'chayash shloshim yom. Right, so we're picking up from this Ma'amar that we didn't see before in the name of Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. We saw that the Nahardai, right, people from Nahardaya, Shmuel was from Nahardaya, that they said l'chayash shoshim yom. What we saw from Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel, that was the beginning of what we looked at today, that there were two versions of what Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel said regarding a woman who gives birth. In any event, so he said, but we'll start from here. L'chayash shoshim yom. So chaya has a status of a chaya for 30 days. So the Gemara asks, L'mai hilchata, for what purpose do we consider her to be a chaya for 30 days? What is the halachic status that she gets for 30 days? Amri nahardai l'tfilah. So the people in Nahardaya said that was regarding tfilah. Amarava lo amran elashem ba'ala ima. So what does it mean l'tfilah? So we'll see. We understand it from the continuation. Rava says, "Lo amran." They didn't say that she's a chaya for tefillah, elashem ba'ala ima. Only when her husband is not with her. Ba'ala ima, ba'ala mechamema. But if her husband is with her, then her husband warms her up. So what does it mean that she's a chaya vis-a-vis tefillah?
If she needs to, for whatever reason, go to the mikveh, she needs to be careful. If she can't do it for 30 days if her husband's not there.
Exactly. Right. So that's how Rashi says it's Tvilah. Ad shoshim yom lo titbol mibnei hatzina. So she's a chaya for this purpose also, right? That not only vis-a-vis what we talked about, of her status of being like a chala she'ein basakana, but also she's not allowed to tavel for 30 days because of the cold. In other words, because of her medical status, we're afraid particularly of her getting cold. So Rava says that there's an exception to that, that generally that's true if the husband isn't with her, but if her husband is with her husband will warm her up. Kiha de brate de Rav Chisda, like the daughter of Rav Chisda, Tavla begot latin yomin, she tabled within 30 days of having given birth. Shelo bifnei ba'ala, when her husband wasn't there, the itstaniyat, and she got cold. So they had to bring her bed to Rava, who was in Pumbedita, to warm her up. So this is continuing on with the particulars of how we treat a chaya on Shabbat. That we make even a fire for her on Shabbat. Savur mina the chayain the cholelo. So we might have deduced from this statement, because of the way it's phrased, osim medura l'chaya b'Shabbat. Maybe it's only for chaya, but not for any other choler. Shamim in, and maybe it means that we make it for her only in the winter, only in the rainy season. Lo. Now, this gets into a girsa issue, but see that in the parentheses, the round parentheses, it says Shamim. So presumably that's implied. And the other part that's in the parentheses here says Velohi, and that's not so. Lo shnai chaya, lo shna chaya, lo shna choleh. There's no difference between a chaya or a choleh. Lo shna bimot kshamim, lo shna bimot achama. Mida itmar, and according to the Girsa of Masor Tashas, you skip this whole part, but you'll come to a similar conclusion. Itmar amarav Chliya bar Avin amar Shmuel. Kis dam v'nitztaneh, somebody who let blood and then got cold, osino medura afil b'tkufat Tammuz. So, as you may know, it was a practice of letting blood. People would let blood every month, right? It was like a maintenance that you did. You would let blood. It's talked about in a lot of places in the Gemara. So whether or not we think letting blood is a good idea or not is not relevant. What's relevant is the way Chazal understood it, which is that if you let blood, then you put yourself into a position of being like a choleh. So if you let blood and then you got cold, then osino, and the person got cold, osino medura fil b'tkufat Tammuz. You make a fire for them, meaning a fire even on Shabbos, even Kufat Tammuz, even in the middle of the summer. And then they go on to bring examples. Shmuel tzlachu le tachtika be'tishaga, Rabbi Yehuda tzlachu le Torah Yoma. For Shmuel, they broke up a table. Okay, kisei. So they broke up like a hardwood chair, and for Rabbi Yehuda, they broke up this other kind of wood of a table. For Rabba itself, and for Rabba, they broke up like a stool or a bench. In other words, they took perfectly good furniture and broke it up to make a fire. So we see the extent to which it was important to make a fire. And okay. And Amarle Rabbi, Rabbi says to Rabbi, Haka Avar Mar Mishum Bal Tashlit. Here, if you're breaking up perfectly good furniture, then it's a problem about Tashlit. Amarle Bal Tashlit Gufay Adifu, right? So the Bal Tashlit of the body is more important to me. In other words, this was considered to be so important that you could break up something in order to save your body. Okay. But the point of this part of the Gemara here is here we were talking about a chaya. We went over to this case of the Mekiz Dam. The idea is that the Mekiz Dam has this same halachic status. So we see even for a Mekiz Dam that we will light a fire for them even on Shabbos, even in the middle of the summer. So of course that will be true for the chaya. This will also be true for the chaya. So so the Rambam brings this down a little bit further on. What did I do there? Oh, I see. I clicked something that I didn't realize. So let's do these next couple of halachot in the Rambam. Chaya mishyatchil hadam liyot shotet ad sheteled, yachar sheteled ad shlosha yamim echalvin alei at Shabbat. So now this is interesting because the Rambam here starts off by saying a chaya from the time that the blood starts to drip from her womb. Earlier it sounded like he starts counting right from the time she's giving birth. So we'd have to examine that separately. We'll leave it for now. And after until she gives birth, and after she gives birth for 3 days, we're Mechal Shabbos for her. We do everything that she needs, whether she says I need, whether she says I don't need. And for 3 days until 7 days, right here the Rambam clarifies this. The 7 days is from the 3 days. If she says I don't need, then we're not Mechal Shabbos. And if she is quiet, and we don't need to say if she says I need, then we're Mechal Shabbos for her. In other words, for the 4th to 7th days, if she says I don't need, then we're not Mechal Shabbos for her. But if she doesn't say anything, then Kol Shekain if she says I need. The Rambam clarifies that if she so because there's a case in between saying I need and saying I don't need. The case is she doesn't say anything. That also gets into a bit of a discussion with Girsa in the Gemara, where the Girsaot we have is say Bein Amra Tzrichani, Bein Amra Lo Tzrichani. It's also a Girsa that says something like Bein Amra Tzrichani, Bein Lo Amra Tzrichani. If she didn't say I need. In other words, right, there's a difference in saying whether she said I need or whether she said I don't need, or whether she said I need or whether she didn't say I need. Right, so if she didn't say I need, if she has this status, then that would be the point of shatka. If she didn't say I need, that could refer to the case of when she just didn't say anything. So if she has this status, then from the 4th to 7th days, we are Mechal Shabbos for her. Mishiva b'ad shoshim yam harehi k'chol she'ein bo sakana. So the rest of the month after the first week, then we consider it to be like a chola she'ein bo sakana, but fil amat tzrichani, even if she says I need, eino sim la malacha ela al yudei goy. right? Then we only do melacha for her by way of a non-Jew. Oops. That's not what I wanted to do. Just a second. And this is the part that we just learned now. Osim medura l'chayav afil b'imot hachama. So we make a fire, right, for the chaya, even in the summertime. Inesha tzina kasha l'chaya harbe b'mkomot hakor, right? But coldness, right? The cold is very hard for a chaya in cold places. Although but we don't make a medura for a regular cholet, just to warm up by. But if he gave, if he let blood and he got cold, then we make a medura for him. And yeah, I think we'll leave the rest of this for now. Let's go back. I think that's all we're going to do from the Gemara here. I think to finish off, let's not just look at the Ran. The reason I did the Sugya is because the Ran refers to this Sugya. So we're now back in Yoma and the Ran. So here the Ran says, "Unyan chaya lo itparish b'gemara ademat mikre chaya l'nilat sandal." So what we've concluded is we understand that a chaya on Yom Kippur is allowed to wear leather shoes, but the Gemara doesn't define what a chaya is for this purpose. Mistaper dad shoshim yom, but it would make sense to say that she's a chaya for 30 days. Now we understand, right? Because one of the reasons that you would wear leather shoes is not just to protect the bottoms of your feet, but to keep your body warm. And we all know this, and there's scientific evidence, but we all know this bechush, right? That if your feet are cold, even if the rest of your body is warm, you're going to feel cold. Or you certainly, it will not contribute to you feeling warm. Like we say in Perek Mefanim, which is what we just saw, we consider her to be a chaya for up to 30 days. Klomar, shein matbilinota betoch shoshim yom mishum tzina. Right, that's the last part of the Gemara that we just saw. We don't let her tavel during these 30 days because we're afraid she'll get cold. Rav Acha Zal katav b'shiltot d'chol shoshim yom asura lehitanot. Right, we'll get into this in a second. So I don't know if you've ever learned the shiltot or know the shiltot. The shiltot was the shiltot of Rav Acha or Rav Achai. Excuse me. It's one of the early halachic works of the Gaonim, a very important halachic work. And like other works of the Gaonim, a lot of times Rishonim would disagree. Sometimes Rishonim disagree with things that they found in the Gaonim. But the Shiltot is also interesting. It's ostensibly ordered according to the Parsha, but it's not really in order, but it's divided up into the parsha, into the weekly Torah portion, but you don't necessarily find the halachot that you might expect. It's for every portion. It was really just a way of getting people to learn every week. Understand? Or it's like you would learn how it would be sort of like halacha yomis, right? You would learn these halachas during the week. There's an edition which I have back at home, which I think you can download from. I think I have it here. I think they put the shiltot. I have the shiltot in Bar Ilan. There's an edition that has the perush of the Netziv, right? So it's relatively recent perush. In any event, Rav Acha says in the shiltot, the whole shoshim yom asura hitanot. he says that she's a chaya also for this purpose, that she's not allowed to fast for the first 30 days from the time she gave birth. So he's very mekil b'gabei b'chaya. V'lo nihira, it doesn't seem to be so. She mekil b'nilata sandal d'isura ba'almahi u'kitikativna le'el nakel b'isur karet. That it doesn't seem likely that just because Chachamim were mekil for nilata sandal, which is an isura ba'alma. In other words, it's an interesting turn of phrase after his discussion, but I think he means even if you hold that it's in isur deoraita, right? Because that was the machloket he brought down, whether it's derabanan or whether it's deoraita. But even if it's deoraita, the way he concludes is that it's not an isur that has the same status, that it had a lot of limitations, but Chazal understood it in a certain way. So you can't compare it to the isur of eating. In no way can you say it's like eating. So just because she's allowed to put on shoes, it doesn't mean she's allowed to eat. As I wrote earlier, that right, it doesn't mean I can be mekil about an isur karet. ועוד אם איתה בפרק מפנים דאמר שמואל לחיה 30 יום ואמרינה לה למה הלכת להדרין לתפילה למה לתענית, right? So the other place where we see this is the Gemara that we just saw, that we understand from the Gemara says a chaya is a chaya for 30 days for the purposes of not going to Tabel. So madrin l'tfilah lema l'ta'anit, right? If it's true that she is not allowed to fast, then the Gemara there should have said, "What do you mean l'tfilah? What about ta'anit?" Like it should be that we would say the most chamur thing that we don't let her do. So if we don't let her eat, then the Gemara should have said that there. And right. So as far as ta'anit, then we do judge her to be somebody who has to fast. And we put her, in other words, then she falls out into the categories that were laid out in Masechet Shabbat, right? And then it'll depend. If they're during the first 3 days, then we would say, okay, that maybe she shouldn't fast at all. And then the 4th to the 7th day, maybe we leave it up to her. And then the rest of the time, then she has to fast. Right? So for the first 3 days, she for sure doesn't fast. Shiva, in other words, from the 4th to the 7th day, Amra Eini Tzricha. If she says, I don't need, meaning I don't need to be Machalel Yom Kippur, then she fasts. Then we let her fast. Being love, but if she doesn't say that, or she says, I need to eat, then we give her to eat. From the end of the first week till the end of the 30 days, then she's like any other woman regarding Yom Kippur. So that's that. I think we'll stop here. And next time, I think we're going to continue in the Gemara. What I want to do, because I'm still working on this Agarata, but I think it's best for us, we should finish the Sugya up until the end of the first Mishnah. And hopefully by then we'll take a break. Although, wait a second. So next week it's going to be Purim, Shushan Purim.
Shushan Purim.
Right. So Paul asked me. He told me he can't come, but he asked me if we're going to have shiur, because For him, it'll be Motzei Purim. For
Yeah,
you and
yeah.
me, it won't be Purim, right? It'll all be, Purim will be history by then, right? So I told him I'll ask, so I'm assuming that it's okay for you if we have shiur.
Yeah, yeah, I assume, yeah, I didn't think about, Paul, yeah, it's okay with me.
It's okay with you. So I think what I'll do, I'll tell Michael and Paul that we're gonna have shiur, and but I'll understand, like, if they're still celebrating late into the night, I'll understand, but I think we should move on. So I'm not gonna give a special shiur for Purim, but I did also want to mention, in addition to, I had this in mind, but I just want to say that I wanted to dedicate this to my daughter and my new granddaughter, and also in memory of my sister, whose yahrzeit is going to be tomorrow night.
Okay, so,
So it should be,
Shama should have an aliyah.
thank you. So Bezrat Hashem, I'll see you next week,
Okay,
and take it easy.
all right, thanks, good night.
Bye-bye.